The late afternoon sun was starting to stretch the shadows long across County Route 17. It was that quiet hour, not quite day, not quite night, when the light turned everything a soft, dusty gold. For the deputy in the cruiser, it was the best kind of shift quiet. He'd been on this road 100 times, maybe 1,000. He knew every bend, every faded mailbox, every house where the dogs would run out to bark at his car. He was leaning back in the driver's seat, one arm resting on the open window, feeling the warm air rush by. His mind wasn't on police work. It was on the cold beer waiting in his fridge at home, the leftover meatloaf his wife had wrapped up for him. Just another hour or so of making the loop, of seeing nothing and no one, and he could clock out. That's when the dark sedan came over the hill. It moved fast. Too fast for this road, where the potholes could swallow a tire and the deer liked to wander out from the pine trees. The deputy's eyes, almost out of habit, dropped to his speedometer. The needle in his own car wasn't moving, but he knew speed when he saw it. The sedan was a clean, modern thing, not a speck of dust on it. With rental plates from a state way up north, it stood out like a sore thumb against the backdrop of battered pickup trucks and old sedans everyone around here drove. A little jolt went through him. Not alarm, not yet. More like interest. Something to do. His boredom evaporated. He pulled the cruiser onto the asphalt with a smooth turn, the tires crunching on the gravel shoulder for a second before finding purchase. He flicked on his lights, the solid, silent red and blues, not the siren. No need for that. The sedan slowed right away, like the driver had been expecting it. It pulled off perfectly onto the wide shoulder, giving the deputy plenty of room. Polite, professional. The deputy noted that as he parked behind it, leaving a car's length between them, just like procedure said. He took a slow breath, adjusted his hat, and ran the plates through his computer as the system whirred to life. It came back clean, registered to a big rental company. He opened his door and stepped out. The air was still warm. Cicadas were starting their evening song in the trees. He walked up on the driver's side, his boots making soft, steady thumps on the asphalt. His right hand rested comfortably, almost casually, on the butt of his holstered pistol. Just a habit, just being ready. As he got closer, he could see the driver, a black man, maybe in his 30s, wearing a simple, nice polo shirt. The man's hands were already on the steering wheel at 10 and 2. He was looking straight ahead, then turned his head to look at the deputy in the side mirror. His face was calm. No panic. The deputy stopped just behind the driver's door. "Afternoon," he said, his voice flat. "All business. You know why I pulled you over?" The driver rolled down his window. "I'm guessing I was speeding, officer," he said. His voice was even, clear. "No accent from around here. City, maybe. You were doing 67 in a 45. This ain't the interstate." The deputy let the statement hang there. He watched the man's hands. They didn't move from the wheel. "My apologies," the driver said. "The road opened up and I guess my mind was elsewhere. I didn't realize." The deputy nodded slowly. He'd heard it before. "License and registration, please." The man nodded. With a slow, deliberate move, he took his right hand off the wheel and reached towards the glove compartment. "Registration is in here," he said, almost narrating his actions. "Hold on," the deputy said, a little sharper than he meant to. "Just the license first. Use your left hand." A flicker of something passed over the driver's face. Not anger, more like understanding. A sad kind of understanding. He stopped, put his right hand back on the wheel, and with his left, carefully fished his wallet from his back pocket. He pulled out a driver's license and held it out the window. The deputy took it. The license was from the same northern state as the rental plates. The picture looked right. The name was nothing special. It said he was an organ donor. Everything was in order, but something was itching at the back of the deputy's mind. The car was too nice. The man was too calm. He'd been doing this job long enough in this county to know the types. The nervous kids, the angry drunks, the folks who'd just plain forgotten their license. This was different. This man's calm felt like a wall. "And the registration," the deputy said, handing the license back for a moment. "Go ahead and get it now, slow." The man complied, opening the glove box. The deputy leaned in a little, peering inside. He saw the rental agreement, a manual, and next to them, two phones. Not just regular phones. They looked heavy-duty, with thicker cases. And there was a small, sleek tablet, the kind that looked expensive. The deputy's eyes narrowed. Who carried stuff like that on a drive through the country? The man retrieved the rental agreement and handed both it and his license over. The deputy took them and took a step back. "Sit tight," he said. He walked back to his cruiser, the papers in his hand. He slid into his seat and started entering the information into his computer. The license came back valid. No warrants. But then he ran the name through a couple of other systems, just to see. That's when he got the hit. Or, not quite a hit. A message flashed on his screen. *** Federal Record Restriction. Contact NCIC for further inquiry. *** The deputy sat back. Federal Record Restriction. He'd seen that a handful of times. Sometimes it was for witnesses. Sometimes it was for folks who worked in sensitive jobs. Or, his mind supplied. Sometimes it was for people who were very good at hiding who they really were. A guy with encrypted-looking phones, driving a fast car through the middle of nowhere. With a flagged file? The itch in his mind became a buzz. He got out of the cruiser again and walked back up. The driver was still sitting there, hands on the wheel, looking straight ahead. The deputy handed the papers back through the window. "Step out of the car for me, please." The man turned his head. For the first time, his calm seemed to harden just a fraction. "Officer, is there a problem?" "Just step out of the car, sir. We'll talk about it outside." There was a pause. The cicadas seemed to get louder. Finally, the man said, "Okay." He moved smoothly, turning off the engine, pulling the keys, and opening the door. He stepped out, standing to his full height. He was tall, almost as tall as the deputy, and carried himself with a straight-backed posture. He closed the car door gently and faced the deputy, his hands held loosely at his sides. The deputy felt a sudden, unexpected need to re-establish control. The man's posture wasn't threatening, but it was confident. It wasn't the slouch of someone who was scared or guilty. "You mind telling me what this is about, officer?" the man asked. His voice was still calm, but there was a new thread in it, a firmness. "I'll ask the questions," the deputy said, hearing the stiffness in his own voice. "What's your business here in this county?" "Just passing through. Heading south. To where?" "To a work assignment." "What kind of work?" "I'm an engineer." The answer came quickly, too quickly for the deputy's liking. Vague. "An engineer," the deputy repeated, letting the doubt color his words. "With those phones in there? Looks like some fancy gear for just passing through." The man's eyes met his then. They were dark, intelligent, and they held the deputy's gaze without blinking. "My work requires secure communication. That's all." A big truck rumbled by in the other direction. The driver, a white man in a feed store cap, slowed down to stare at the scene. A deputy standing off with a tall black man beside a fancy car. The deputy felt the man. The gravel of the shoulder bit into the man's palms as he lowered himself. He moved with an agonizing slowness, every muscle tense, his eyes never quite leaving the deputy's face. The deputy's finger was tight on the trigger guard, his whole arm rigid. The world had shrunk to this patch of asphalt, the two of them, and the gun, all the way down. "On your belly, arms out," the deputy barked. His voice was too high, strained with the adrenaline pumping through him. The man complied, laying his chest on the rough ground, spreading his arms wide to his sides. He turned his head to the side, his cheek pressed against the dirt and small stones. He was breathing deeply, steadily, as if trying to calm a spooked horse. The deputy took 2 quick steps forward, the gun still extended. "Don't you move a muscle. You understand me?" Not a twitch. He was talking too much. He knew it, but he couldn't stop. The words were a fence he was building around the situation. "You just stay right there." He needed to secure the scene. He needed to call this in. But his mind was racing, skipping over procedure. The man was down, but he didn't feel in control. The man's calm was a wall, and the deputy was shouting at it. He took one hand off the gun, fumbling for the radio mic clipped to his shoulder. He kept the barrel pointed, his arm now aching with the effort. "Charlie 7 to dispatch," he said, trying to force his voice into its normal, flat cop tone. It came out tight and strange, a crackle. Then the dispatcher's calm female voice. "Go ahead, Charlie 7. I'm out on County 17, mile marker 22. I've got one male subject detained on a traffic stop. I'm going to need another unit out here. 10-4, Charlie 7. Is everything secure?" The deputy's eyes darted from the man on the ground to the car, to the darkening tree line. "Subject is non-compliant and potentially armed. I'm holding at gunpoint. Just get someone here." He didn't wait for a reply. He let the mic go. He hadn't said the right things. Non-compliant wasn't exactly true. The man had gotten out of the car. He'd gotten on the ground. But he'd talked back. He'd questioned. That was non-compliance in the deputy's rulebook. From the ground, the man spoke. His voice was muffled by the dirt but clear. Officer, this is unnecessary. I have identification. You can verify who I am. Shut up. The deputy snapped, the words exploding from him. I'm not talking to you. You look straight ahead and you keep your mouth closed. The man fell silent, but his silence felt heavy, loaded. Another car approached from the opposite direction. It was an old station wagon. It slowed to a crawl. The deputy could see a woman's face, pale and wide-eyed, staring from the driver's seat. Her kids were in the back, their noses pressed to the window. She sped up quickly, her tires kicking up a little cloud of dust. The humiliation burned in the deputy's gut. This was how it looked. Him, with his gun out, pointed at a man lying flat on the dirt over a speeding ticket. He could imagine the woman calling the sheriff's office, the rumors that would start. He had to make this right. He had to find the thing that justified it. You, the deputy said, taking a step closer. What's in the car? What are you hiding? The man on the ground didn't answer. I asked you a question. The deputy yelled. You told me not to speak. The man said, his tone unbearably logical. The deputy saw red. He took 2 more quick steps until he was standing over the man, the tip of his boots almost touching the man's outstretched fingers. You think this is a game? You think you're smart? I can make this a whole lot worse for you. For the first time, the man on the ground moved his head. He tilted it back just enough to look up at the deputy. The look in his eyes wasn't fear. It was something worse. It was pity, and a deep, simmering anger, held in check by something stronger. The only one making this worse is you, the man said, each word quiet and precise. You are creating a dangerous situation out of nothing. The deputy's heart hammered against his ribs. The man was right under his feet, completely vulnerable, and yet he felt like he was the one being judged, being cornered. That cool, analytical gaze saw right through him, saw the uncertainty, the fear hiding behind the badge and the gun. Roll over, the deputy commanded, the idea forming as he spoke. Onto your back, slow. The man hesitated. Lying on his stomach, he was in a position of submission. On his back, he'd be more vulnerable, but he'd also be able to see everything. It was a more confrontational position. After a long second, he began to move, rolling his shoulders, his body a slow, deliberate curve in the dirt until he was lying on his back, looking up at the deputy and the darkening sky. He kept his arms out to his sides, his palms open, a sign of no threat. The deputy stared down at him. The man's polo shirt was smeared with dirt. His face was set in a hard mask. I am going to reach into my pocket, the man said, his voice calm but firm. I am not reaching for a weapon. I need to make a phone call. The hell you are. The deputy spat. You're not calling anyone. You can call a lawyer from county lockup after I'm done searching you and your car, for whatever it is you're running. The man closed his eyes for a second, a flicker of profound frustration. When he opened them, they were fixed on the deputies. It is not a call to a lawyer. It is a call to my commanding officer, to prevent this from becoming a national security incident. The deputy almost laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. National security? You're speeding in a rental car. You think you're James Bond? Your commanding officer? What are you, some kind of weekend soldier? The man didn't rise to the taunt. I am a former captain in the United States Army. My current work is protected. This stop is a mistake. The phone call will verify that and end this safely. For both of us, the words hung in the air. For both of us, it sounded like a threat. The deputy's mind reeled. A captain. It could be a lie. A desperate, stupid lie from a guy caught with something bad in his trunk. But the way he said it, the way he carried himself, the federal flag on his file, doubt, cold and slippery, started to worm its way into the deputy's certainty. What if he was wrong? But the gun was in his hand. The man was on the ground. The call for backup was out. To back down now, after all this, would be an admission that he'd lost his mind over a speeding ticket. It would be the end of his reputation. He was into deep. You're not calling anyone, the deputy said, but his voice had lost some of its force. You just lie there and you wait for the other deputy to get here. Then we're going to sort this all out. He could hear the faint sound of a siren in the distance. Still miles away. Help was coming. He just had to hold on. The man on the ground saw the hesitation. He pressed the only advantage he had. Officer, he said, his voice dropping, becoming almost conversational amidst the absurdity of their positions. You have my license. You ran it. You saw the flag on my file. You see the equipment in my car. Use your head. Does this add up to a man you need to hold at gunpoint over 67 in a 45? The deputy's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. The siren was getting closer. The man made his decision. With a slowness that was almost peaceful, he moved his right hand from where it was lying on the gravel. He brought it across his body, towards his left pants pocket. I'm moving my hand to my pocket, he announced, his voice a steady monotone. I am retrieving a phone. I am dialing a number. I am putting it on speaker. You will be able to hear everything. This is the safest way to resolve this. The deputy's finger tightened on the trigger. Every instinct screamed to shout, to fire a warning shot, to stop him. But a deeper, terrified instinct froze him. The man's actions were too deliberate, too unafraid. This wasn't the panic of a criminal. He watched, helpless, as the man pulled a plain black phone from his pocket. It was different from the ones in the car, simpler. The man's thumb moved over the screen. He didn't look at it. He kept his eyes on the deputy. He put the phone to his ear. One ring, two. The deputy stood over him, gun aimed, a statue of indecision. The distant siren wailed, coming closer. The world waited, a click on the line. A voice, sharp and clear even from a few feet away, came through the speaker. The voice from the phone was like a splash of ice water. It wasn't a question. It was a demand. The man on the ground didn't flinch. He spoke into the phone, his voice low but clear, cutting through the tense silence of the roadside. Foxtrot, Tango, Niner, Zebra, 7, Alpha, a series of letters and numbers. They meant nothing to the deputy, but they were spoken with the quick, flat tone of someone who had said them 100 times before. A code. There was a brief pause on the other end. Just a second of dead air filled with the hum of the phone line. Then the voice returned, different now. Less like a machine, more like a person who had just snapped to attention. Identity confirmed. Captain. Status? Captain. The word hit the deputy in the stomach. It was real. The lie wasn't a lie. The man on the ground kept his eyes locked on the deputy's. He was talking to the voice, but he was speaking for the man with the gun to hear. I am currently detained by a local law enforcement officer. I am on the ground, at gunpoint. The stop was for a traffic violation. The officer's demeanor is hostile. I am requesting immediate authentication and a resolution. This is a priority RORA situation. The deputy's mouth went dry. Priority RORA. The words sounded like something from a movie, but the man said them with absolute seriousness. The voice on the phone didn't miss a beat. Understood, Captain. Stand by. Do not terminate the call. I am connecting you directly to the Pentagon Joint Operations Watch floor. The Pentagon. The words seemed to suck the sound out of the world. The cicadas, the distant siren, the deputy's own ragged breathing, it all faded into a dull roar in his ears. He was pointing a gun at a man who was on the phone with the Pentagon. This wasn't happening. This was a dream, a bad, stupid dream. A new voice came on the line. This one was deeper, older, and carried a weight of authority that seemed to physically press down on the scene. This is Colonel Hayes on the Joint Ops Watch floor. Who am I speaking with? The man on the ground answered. This is Captain Elias, Authentication Bravo Charlie 79er. I am being detained by a county sheriff's deputy. I require immediate verification to prevent further escalation. Understood, Captain. Maintain your position. Do not make any sudden moves. The colonel's voice was calm, like he handled calls like this every day. Maybe he did. Deputy. The voice continued, sharp and clear from the speaker. This is Colonel Hayes, United States Department of Defense. You are on an open line with the National Military Command Center. Lower your weapon and step back from the captain. The command was so absolute, so devoid of any doubt, that the deputy's arm actually twitched, wanting to obey, but his body was frozen. His pride, his fear, the sheer unbelievable reality of it all locked his muscles. He found his voice, but it was a weak, shaky thing. How do I know this is real? This could be a trick. This could be his buddy on the phone. From the ground, the captain closed his eyes for a second, a pained look on his face. The colonel's voice didn't rise in volume, but it turned colder, harder. Deputy, listen to me very carefully. You are holding a United States Army officer, a veteran with a top-secret security clearance, at gunpoint during a sanctioned travel movement. You are compromising an active, sensitive project. The authenticity of this call is not your concern. Your concern is de-escalating this situation *. Immediately *. Lower your weapon. Now. The deputy's mind was a storm of panic. Every part of his training told him to not give up his advantage, to not listen to an unknown voice on a phone. But this wasn't a gang member or a drug dealer. This was a colonel from the Pentagon. The siren he'd heard was now a pulsing flash of blue and red lights reflecting in the trees down the road. His backup was seconds away. "Your backup is arriving, deputy," the colonel said, as if reading his mind. "You will hand your commanding officer this phone. Is that understood?" Before the deputy could form a word, a county sheriff's SUV skidded to a halt behind his cruiser. Lights blazing. The door flew open and an older deputy, a man with a thick gray mustache and a heavy build, jumped out. He took in the scene with experienced, quick eyes, his colleague standing with a drawn weapon, a man lying on his back on the ground, a phone on his chest. "What in the good hell is going on here, Mike?" The older deputy boomed, his hand going to his own holster, but not drawing. The deputy Mike couldn't find the words. He just gestured weakly with his head towards the phone. The man on the ground spoke, raising his voice slightly. "Officer, the deputy has my identification. The Pentagon is on the line and requires to speak with the senior officer on scene." The older deputy's eyes widened. He looked from the man to his colleague's pale, sweating face. He moved cautiously forward, not drawing his gun but keeping his hand ready. "Mike, lower your weapon. Right now." The command from his partner broke the spell. Mike's arm finally gave out, the weight of the gun suddenly too much. He lowered it, pointing it at the ground, his finger sliding off the trigger guard. He felt dizzy. The older deputy stepped closer, looking down at the man. "Sir, I need you to stay very still." He then looked at the phone. "Who is this?" "Colonel Hayes, Department of Defense." "Identify yourself, officer." "This is Senior Deputy Wilkins, County Sheriff's Office." "Can you verify what's happening here, Colonel?" "We can and we will. But first, Deputy Wilkins, I need you to confirm the safety of Captain Elias. Is he injured? Is he still under direct threat?" Wilkins looked at Mike, who was just standing there, his gun hanging limply at his side. "The weapon is lowered. He is not injured." He paused. "Captain." The man on the ground gave a single, slow nod. "Good." The colonel's voice crackled. "Now, Deputy Wilkins, you will provide me with your badge number and your sheriff's office main dispatch number." "Captain, are you able to stand?" "Yes, Colonel," the man said. "Then you may stand, slowly. Keep the phone on speaker and in your hand." The man on the ground moved. He pushed himself up to a sitting position, then, with a careful, deliberate motion, got to his feet. He brushed the dirt and gravel from his clothes, a simple human gesture that seemed incredibly out of place. He picked up the phone and held it out between the two deputies. Mike watched, a hollow feeling growing in his chest. He saw the man not as a suspect anymore, but as a person. He saw the quiet dignity in his movements, the controlled anger in the set of his shoulders. He saw the smudges of dirt on his shirt, put there because Mike had made him lie on the ground. Wilkins was reciting his badge number into the phone, his face serious. As he spoke, the radio on his shoulder crackled to life. It was the voice of their dispatcher, but she sounded strange, anxious. "Unit Charlie 7, Unit Charlie 2. Be advised we are receiving multiple high-priority calls regarding your traffic stop. Stand by for Sheriff Hatcher." A second later, the sheriff's own gruff voice, tight with a panic Wilkins had never heard before, erupted from the radio. "Wilkins, Mike, do you copy? What is your status? I have the FBI on one line and the damn state police commissioner on the other. The governor's office is calling. Do you have a man in custody there? Do not move him. Do not touch anything. I am 5 minutes out. Confirm." The voice echoed in the sudden stillness. The colonel on the phone had gone silent, letting the sheriff's frantic transmission do all the talking for him. Wilkins looked at Mike, his eyes full of a horrified question. Mike could only stare back, his face blank with shock. The man with the phone, Captain Elias, looked from one deputy to the other. There was no triumph in his eyes, no goal. For a long moment, nobody moved. The only sound was the idle rumble of the patrol car engines and the static hiss from the open door of the first cruiser. The older deputy, Wilkins, looked from the man holding the phone to his younger partner. Mike was just staring at the ground, his face pale and empty. Wilkins was the first to break the spell. He let out a long, slow breath, the kind you take when you're trying to steady your nerves. He unclipped the radio from his shoulder. "Dispatch, this is Charlie 2. We copy the sheriff. Scene is secure. No injuries. We are standing by." He sounded tired, much older than he had just 5 minutes ago. He looked at the man, the captain. "Sir," Wilkins began, his voice careful. "I think it's best if you just wait right there. Maybe lean against your car. Would you like some water from my cruiser?" It was a small offer, but it marked the shift. He wasn't talking to a suspect. He was talking to a person who had just turned his world upside down. The captain nodded once. "Water would be appreciated. Thank you." As Wilkins walked stiffly back to his SUV, Mike finally seemed to wake up. His training kicked in, but it was the wrong training for the situation. He took a step toward the captain, his hand going to his handcuffs out of pure habit. "I need to. We should secure." The captain turned his head. He didn't say a word. He just looked at Mike's hand near the cuffs, then up at his face. The look wasn't angry. It was disappointed. It was the look a teacher gives a student who has failed a simple, important test. Wilkins heard it and spun around. "Mike, don't you touch him. Are you deaf? Did you not hear the man on the phone? Did you not hear the sheriff?" His voice was a harsh whisper, meant to cut through his partner's fog. "You just stand over there by your car. Don't speak. Don't do anything." Mike's hand fell away from his belt. He looked lost. He shuffled back to the driver's side door of his own cruiser and leaned against it, his arms crossed, trying to look like he was still part of the scene. But he was just a spectator now. Wilkins brought a cold bottle of water from his cooler and handed it to the captain. The man took it, twisted the cap, and drank half of it in one go. He was thirsty. The adrenaline, the dust, the lying on the hot asphalt, it all took a toll. "I'm sorry about this," Wilkins said quietly, not quite meeting the captain's eye. It wasn't an official apology. It was just one man to another, acknowledging a mess, before the captain could respond. New headlights appeared down the road. They weren't the flashing lights of more county cars. These were plain, bright LEDs. Two black, unmarked SUVs with dark tinted windows moved fast and purposefully, pulling onto the shoulder in a way that framed the scene, blocking it from view of any passing traffic. Their doors opened almost at once. Men and one woman got out. They were dressed in dark, casual clothes, polos and khakis or dark jackets, but everything about them screamed official. They moved with a quiet efficiency, no wasted motion. One man, older with a close-cropped gray beard, went straight to Wilkins, flashing a badge and a leather wallet. "Deputy, FBI, we're taking custody of the scene and the individual. Your sheriff is 2 minutes out. Please have your officer stand down and wait for him." It wasn't a request. Wilkins just nodded, relieved in a way to hand over the hot potato. He gestured for Mike to stay put. Another agent, a younger woman, approached the captain. Her demeanor changed instantly. It was still professional, but there was a layer of respect. "Captain, are you all right, sir? Do you require medical attention?" "I'm fine," the captain said. His voice was hoarse. "Just a lot of drama over nothing. We'll get this sorted, sir. General Riggs is on her way." At that moment, the sheriff's personal truck, a big pickup with a light bar on the roof, screeched to a halt. Sheriff Hatcher, a large man with a red face that was now almost purple, heaved himself out. He ignored everyone else and made a beeline for Wilkins and the FBI agent. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, though his bluster was thin, covering his panic. "This is my county." The FBI agent with the gray beard turned to him, utterly calm. "Sheriff Hatcher, the situation involves a protected Department of Defense asset. Federal jurisdiction applies. We will be debriefing your deputies. You will cooperate fully." He handed the sheriff a card. "You can expect calls from the U.S. Attorney's Office and the DOD's legal counsel in the morning." The sheriff took the card like it was a live snake. He looked over at the captain, who was now speaking quietly with the female agent, then at Mike, who was shrinking against his cruiser. His shoulders slumped. The fight went out of him. He knew what this meant. Lawsuits, investigations, headlines. Then, a final car arrived. A plain sedan. Government issue. A woman got out. She was in her 50s, with severe short hair and wore a simple but sharp pantsuit. She carried no visible weapon, but her authority was palpable. She was the one the agent straightened up for. This was General Riggs. She walked past the sheriff, past the FBI agents, straight to the captain. For a moment, the professional mask slipped. Her eyes scanned him, checking for injuries, her face tight with concern. "Elias," she said, her voice low. "General," he replied. A faint, tired smile touched his lips. "I'm okay, really. You're sure?" She reached out and brushed a bit of gravel from his shoulder, a strangely maternal gesture. "What happened?" He gave a short, blunt summary. Speeding stop. Deputy got nervous about the gear in the car. Saw the flag on my file. Escalated. Drew his weapon. Ordered me to the ground. I invoked the protocol. The general's eyes went cold. She turned slowly, her gaze sweeping across the local officers. It landed on Mike, who seemed to want the earth to swallow him whole. She didn't say anything to him. She didn't need to. The look was enough, a scathing assessment that stripped him bare. She turned to the senior FBI agent. We need a full forensic image of the deputy's dash and body cameras. All radio transmissions. I want the captain's belongings inventoried and returned to him immediately. He is coming with me. Already in progress, General, the agent said. The scene became a blur of quiet, efficient activity. An FBI agent with gloves carefully collected the captain's phones and tablet from the rental car, placing them in a special case. Another was already in the deputy's cruiser, removing the data card from the dash camera. 2 more were taking photographs of the scene, the position of the cars, the gravel on the shoulder where the captain had lain. The captain watched it all, sipping his water. He saw Mike, the deputy, standing alone. The young man looked like a ghost. All his earlier anger and certainty had drained away, leaving behind a hollow shell of confusion and dread. As the general guided the captain toward her sedan, he paused. He looked back at Mike. He walked over to him, stopping a few feet away. The FBI agents tensed slightly, but the general held up a hand. The deputy looked up, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and shame. The captain didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just spoke, his voice so quiet only Mike could hear it. You asked me what my business was here, he said. I'm an engineer. I design systems that protect people, soldiers, sometimes civilians. That's all. He let that sink in. Today, you looked at me and you saw a threat. You never saw a person. You never saw a veteran. You just saw your own fear. He didn't wait for a response. He turned and walked back to the general's car. He didn't look like a victim. He looked like a man who was tired of having to prove he belonged in his own country. Mike stood there, the words burning into him. He watched the captain duck into the back of the sedan. He watched the general get in the front. He watched the 2 black SUVs and the sedan drive away, their taillights disappearing into the night, leaving behind only the spinning red and blue lights of the county cruisers and a silence that was louder than any siren. The sheriff was talking loudly to the FBI agent, his voice full of excuses and bluster. Wilkins was just shaking his head, leaning on his hood, but Mike heard none of it. All he could hear were those quiet, final words, and the deafening sound of his own heartbeat in the sudden, hollow dark.